Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. Or the lich. As the shadow wills, the dead shall serve. The restless dead await. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. The dead shall serve. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. This better be good. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Die. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. For the Lich King. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. None shall survive. For the Lich King. Tremble before the scourge. Intrigue. For the Lich King. The restless dead await. Intriguing. The dead shall serve. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Intriguing. The shadows beckon. The shadow wills. What does the shadow? Darkness guide me, for the Lich King. Intrigue. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me, for the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. Die. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Tremble before the scourge. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Intrigue. For the Lich King. Intriguing. Die. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. The restless dead await. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills.
Can I help you?
What does the shadow will? Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King, the dead shall serve. Let darkness guide me. This better be good. The dead shall serve. Shadow wills. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide. Tremble before the sword. Die. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. What does the shadow will? Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. The restless dead await. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. Tremble before the sword. Die. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. This better be good. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. The restless dead await. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. This better be. None shall survive. The dead shall serve. What does the shadow will? The restless dead await. What does the shadow will? For the Lich King. Tremble before the scourge. None shall survive. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. The dead shall serve. Intriguing. This better be good. As the shadow wills. What does the shadow will? Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. They'll all be mine. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. The shadows beckon. Intrude. As the shadow wills. Or the Lich King. Or the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. This better. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. For the Lich King. Tremble before the scourge. The restless dead await. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. This better be good. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King, let darkness guide me. Intrude. For the Lich King, as the shadow wills. What does the shadow will? For the Lich King, let darkness guide me. Intrude. As the shadow wills. Intriguing.
What is it? All right.
The dead shall serve. Let darkness guide. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me.
All word. What is it? Yes,
what does
Lord.
the shadow will? Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. The restless dead await. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills.
All right.
What does the shadow will? For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. This better be good. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. The restless dead await. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills, let darkness guide me. They'll all be mine. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Intrigue. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow.
Yes, me lord. No one is better.
Let darkness guide me.
Yes, me lord.
For the Lich King. The restless dead await. As the shadow wills, let darkness guide me. This better be good. The restless dead await. What does the shadow will? Intriguing. As the shadow wills, this better be good. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King, let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. The dead shall serve. What does the shadow will? For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me.
Yes, me lord.
The restless dead await. Intrigue. For the Lich King. Intrigue. Die. For the Lich King. Intrigue. None shall survive. They'll all be mine. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. guide me. Intrigue.
Right
This
now.
better. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. For the Lich King. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. Intrigue. For the Lich King. As the shadow will. Intrigue. For the Lich King. As the shadow will. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Intrigue. For the Lich King. The restless dead await. What does the shadow will? This better be good. Intriguing. The restless dead await. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Intriguing. This better be good. Let darkness guide me. What does the shadow will? As the shadow wills, let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills, intriguing. Let darkness guide me, for the Lich King. As the shadow wills, for the Lich King. Let darkness guide me, for the Lich King. As the shadow wills, let darkness guide me, as the shadow wills. Intrigue. Let darkness guide me, as the shadow wills. Intrigue. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me, for the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Die! They'll all be mine. Let darkness guide me, as the shadow wills. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. The dead shall serve. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. None shall survive. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills.
Work? Yes, me lord.
The restless dead await.
What?
What does the shadow will?
Yes, me lord.
The restless dead await. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. This better be good. For the Lich King. What does the shadow will? Intriguing. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. This better be good. Intriguing. The restless dead await. The dead shall serve.
What is it?
As the shadow wills. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Die! For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. None shall survive. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. What does the shadow will? Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Tremble before the scourge. Let darkness guide me.
Yes, my lord.
The restless dead await. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King.
What is it?
The dead shall serve. This better be good. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. The restless dead awaits.
What is it? Yes, my lord. Right then. Off I go then. No one else available. Yes, my lord. Off I go then. All right. Off I go then. Righto. Yes, my lord. All right. More work. Righto.
The shadows beckon. This better be
Inventory is full.
intriguing. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. The restless dead awaits. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Intriguing. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow wills. None shall survive. This better. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. The dead shall serve. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills. For the Lich King. As the shadow wills.
Tremble before the scourge.
Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. Stand and deliver. This better be good. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King, let darkness guide me, as the shadow wills. What does the shadow will? Intriguing, as the shadow wills. This better be good. For the Lich King. The restless dead await. Intriguing. As the shadow wills. This better be good. For the Lich King. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. They'll all be mine. For the Lich King. What? Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. None shall survive. For the Lich King. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow will. For the Lich King. Intriguing. For the Lich King. Let darkness guide me.
Tremble before the scourge.
As the shadow wills. Let darkness guide me. For the Lich King. They'll all be mine in the end. Intriguing. Let darkness guide me. What does the shadow will? For the Lich King. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me. None shall survive. As the shadow will. This better be good. Intriguing. The restless dead await. What does the shadow will? As the shadow will. Die. Let darkness guide me.
Tremble before the scourge.
For the Lich King. Die. This better be good. Intriguing. As the shadow will. Let darkness guide me.
Tremble before the scourge.
Intriguing. They'll all be mine. As the shadow will.